I am 72 years old, and I purchased an international connecting flight ticket through OOJO Travel Agency. Everyone, remember this ticket sales company. My first leg was from Las Vegas to Los Angeles, operated by American Airlines, booking reference, for U005. The flight number was QR9273. The itinerary was originally scheduled to depart from Las Vegas, LAS, on July 15, 2025, at 12:41 p.m., with layovers in Los Angeles, LAX, and Doha, DOH, and a final destination of Almaty Airport, ALA. I was thrilled because this was a business trip. An entrepreneur in Almaty had hired me to design and produce a video advertisement. This wasn't my first time traveling abroad by plane, it was my third. I never imagined I would suffer the nightmare of being stood up by an airline, or as they say in Chinese, being bailed on. At Gate 10 of Terminal 1 at Las Vegas Airport, the operating airline, American Airlines, refused me boarding. An elderly female employee spent nearly an hour on her computer, then showed me a document and used it as a reason to deny my boarding. My English isn't great, so I communicated with her using a phone translator. This older female airport employee simply said to me, "Due to a mechanical failure, you cannot board. Go to the British Airways ticket counter in Terminal 3 to change your ticket." Then she disappeared from the gate. I chased after her and asked where Terminal 3 was. She just pointed in a direction and walked away without another word. At the time, as a writer, I had no idea about the International Montreal Convention, which has clauses to protect passenger rights. According to the contract between the airline and me, in this situation, American Airlines was responsible for rebooking me and providing me with a new ticket that was most beneficial for my journey to my destination. But this older airport employee completely disdained me, a senior passenger. With no one from American Airlines assigned to assist me, I foolishly spent a lot of time dragging my suitcase from Terminal 1 to Terminal 3. After much hassle, I found the British Airways ticket counter. The staff there looked at the document American Airlines gave me with a strange expression, then told me it had nothing to do with them and advised me to find the Qatar Airways ticket counter myself. So, I continued my foolish, aimless search in Terminal 3, like a headless fly, but in the end, I couldn't find a Qatar ticket office. Afterward, I called the ticket agency OOJO. At first, they were in full blame-shifting mode, but after I mentioned I was 72, they agreed to help, saying they would call me if they made any progress. I continued my search for the Qatar ticket office. After I don't know how long, at a ticket counter for a company I didn't recognize, a kind young male employee took pity on me. He looked up my booking information on my phone and said a new ticket to Los Angeles had been sent to my email, with a departure time of 3:55 p.m., and I had to board at Terminal 1. I was very puzzled. Why didn't they call to notify me? By then, it was already 3:25 p.m. I frantically looked for a way to get back to Terminal 1. By the time I finally struggled to get there, it was already past 4 p.m. I called the OOJO ticket agency again. They said, "We already gave you a new ticket. It's your fault you missed it. If you want us to help you get a new ticket, you'll have to pay extra." I was completely dizzy and said, "Okay, I'll pay extra, just help me find a new ticket." A little while later, he replied, "Qatar Airways controls the ticket, we can't do anything." After that, no matter how many times I called, they wouldn't answer. I started searching online for a cheap ticket, since I had less than $430 in my account. I was so dazed that I fantasized about getting a ticket to Almaty for $400, instead of the normal price of over $800. Of course, that was just wishful thinking. That night, I was forced to curl up on an airport bench and even got questioned by airport police. On the morning of July 16, 2025, after 9 a.m., I left the airport exhausted, dragging my suitcase, and returned to downtown Las Vegas in the scorching heat. My cash and bank savings were less than $500. I had to wait 15 days to get my pension. During that half a month, the helpless fear of being homeless haunted me deeply. In Las Vegas, renting a room requires 1 month's rent plus 1 month's deposit, and the average rent is over $400 a month. How was I to get through that half month? The feeling of living on the streets wrapped around my heart like a nightmare. I know an aunt who has been a long-term volunteer at a temple, and I told her about my situation, but she was silent. This experience caused me immense mental stress and financial loss. I failed to arrive in Almaty on time to fulfill a commercial advertising contract, and I was asked to pay a breach of contract fee. Looking back, my failure to reach my destination was first and foremost caused by Qatar Airways' aircraft mechanical failure. However, as the first-legs carrier, American Airlines failed to strictly adhere to the airport ground staff codes of conduct. Customer service: staff must treat all passengers with a professional and polite demeanor, providing clear and accurate information. Special passenger assistance, especially for the elderly, disabled, or passengers with language barriers, the codes of conduct clearly require staff to provide extra, compassionate help and support. Emergency handling: in case of flight delays or cancellations, staff must follow established procedures to provide passengers with rebooking, accommodation, and other solutions. Safety and compliance: all operations must strictly adhere to aviation safety and industry regulations. In all these respects, both American Airlines and Qatar Airways failed to fulfill their duties. God couldn't bear to let me live on the streets. On the evening of the 16th, I finally found a short-term rental hotel online that charged $25 per day. Thank goodness. On July 18, 2025, I began writing complaint letters to American Airlines and Qatar Airways. American Airlines later replied, admitting their fault and compensating me with a $300 voucher. This voucher came with many restrictions. In other words, this voucher was designed to be virtually unusable. It was basically a piece of trash. That voucher was a public display of the airline's shamelessness. And Qatar Airways? They simply ignored my complaint. They flaunted their arrogant and high-and-mighty contempt for passengers. No airline will ever understand or sympathize with the mental trauma of passengers who have gone through similar experiences to mine. Never. Making money is their only goal. Even if it means going against their conscience. That's why legal texts like the Montreal Convention and the EU EC 261/2004 regulation came into being, to prove and curb their shamelessness and greed. This experience, like a nightmare, has given me a deep sense of worry and fear about flying. Please, everyone, remember my lesson and remember the Great Montreal Convention. My panic-filled experience of being stonewalled at the airport is enough to form the framework for a brilliant movie script. A man travels abroad to fulfill a marital pact with his foreign lover, but his beautiful dream is ruthlessly shattered by the dereliction of duty of two airlines. I will definitely write a novel.